Here we go. And we are live on LinkedIn. And we are live. And then we are live on there as well. And let's see. We are now live on. Boom. Here we go. Live on everything. Hi, everyone. Let's see, down the screen. There we go. It's 2:30 p.m. It's a Wednesday afternoon. And you're watching Innovation Fika with me, Donnie, here live on everywhere today. It's LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram as well. If you're watching on TikTok, please add the comments here or jump on to YouTube as well, because it's easy to see comments in my StreamYard studio from YouTube. And if you're watching on LinkedIn, awesome, wonderful. I won't be able to answer comments on LinkedIn, but I can get you on the screen. So as you come online, as usual, please say who you are, where you're from, and say hello. And we can get the networking going as well, because this is as much a networking session as it is anything else. My name is Donnie. As you might know by now, I run this session every week, Wednesday afternoon, 2:30 p.m. Swedish. I run this live session online, usually with guests, and sometimes with myself only. AMA sessions, ask me anything. So today is an AMA session with me, Donnie, here live from KTH Innovation, the biggest and of course bestest tech university in Sweden, and the university's innovation department where I work. So I'm here to answer any questions you might have on anything startup. Ask me anything: startups, entrepreneurship, leadership, new ideas, creativity, technology. Ask me anything and I'll see if I can answer. So as you come online, add who you are and also add where you're from, and we can get some networking started as well. Happy to see people coming online on TikTok as well. Great to see so many people following me there, and also happy to see people. But I want to get the questions going. So everybody on TikTok, start asking me questions as well about startups and entrepreneurship and anything about that, because I'm happy to answer that. And on LinkedIn, as you come online on LinkedIn or YouTube, same thing there. Add who you are in the comments, and any questions you might have, I'll answer them, and we can spend this half an hour, because this is my innovation Fika, my innovation coffee break, where I once per week spend 30 minutes speaking to you, usually with a guest, as I said, about anything to do with ideas and new cool tech or new ideas. Next week, there's going to be an extra special innovation Fika with me and a guy from Finland. We'll be talking about how their innovation support system works at their university as well. That's going to be really, really cool. And I'm really looking forward to that one. So that's next week. But today is only me. Well, not only me, but today you have me here as your resource. So make sure to ask me anything about startups or entrepreneurship or ideas in English or in Swedish, because I'm bilingual for those. I'm working in Sweden as well. So today we're talking about startups and entrepreneurship. So let's talk about some things of how to get started. How many of you have a startup? Many of you that listening might have a startup or have tried something. I know that a lot of people that were signed up on LinkedIn, at least, are sort of kind of in either the startup industry or the support industry that I've come in touch with. And I bet you that you know as much as I do about why things work and why they don't. But I think we talk about a bit about why things fail today. Why do startups fail? Why do ideas fail? I thought we'd talk about that today. And I'm happy to share my experiences from both succeeding but even better, failing. I think that one of my biggest advantages as a business coach, which I am here at the university, is that I've tried lots of things. I've failed many times over, and hopefully, I'm not saying perfectly, hopefully I've learned something along the way as well. So let's start by going through why things fail. And I think that one very common reason is that you just have an idea of what you want to do or what you want to build or what you want to achieve. And then you start with that, and then you forget about checking, does anybody else actually think that this is a good idea or not? That's a very, very common thing. A very common mistake is that we get so enthusiastic about our own idea that this is the perfect way of doing it. And we just run off, and then we start doing it. And Sometimes we spend too much time and even money on building it before we ask, the most important question of all: does anybody in the world, apart from myself, actually want this? And that's interesting, because that's when things start happening. When you realize that maybe people weren't so completely convinced that this was such a fantastic idea as you thought. Hey, comments coming in here. Melina, how good to see you, Melina. Welcome in. Melina, you work with a lot of young people with great ideas at the very early stage of their startup. What are usually their fears, concerns? Hi, by the way. Well, hi, Melina. So really, really nice to see you again. And you get on the show. Come back here someday and we'll do. I had Melina on the show. I don't know, episode 100 and something. This is episode 146. Happy to have you on the show again, Melina. We can do another joint effort together. Well, I'd say biggest fears or concerns is, you have the, let's see which way you're seeing it, but you have the idea, like sort of, okay, I have an idea here, and then you see sort of this is what the idea looks like in completion. So it's like from 0 to 100, and then between those 2 points, there's like an empty space. Usually, in best case, there's a post-it note in the middle there where it says sort of insert magic here, because you have no real idea. You don't really have an idea of how you're going to achieve 0 to 100. That's usually one thing. So understanding sort of what do I need to do to build to get to that place is sort of one thing. Just that understanding, and because that can help you then start building your expertise and your network and your knowledge. I mean, my sister, when we starting companies, we had this motto of, how hard can it be? Because if you can see anything that anybody else has done, then it's physically possible to do it. So then to get to do the same thing, the only thing you need is time, resources, and skills, right? Sometimes you need a lot of resources and a lot of time and a lot of skills, but it still is physically possible to actually achieve it. So understanding what you need, and that's a great thing of working in academia as well with young people, is that they're in a perfect, anybody in academia, if you're a student, you're in the perfect place to not fix maybe, but at least give any big problem in the world a good run for the money. You can try and fix any big problem in the world if you have the right mindset, and if you're in academia as well, because then you're surrounded by people who are really, really smart and are super focused on one thing. And usually if you have like an innovation center like we do, you also have lots of support in getting the idea from idea to realization, and also funding and the whole thing. So I'd say that one big thing is, the understanding of what do I need to do to get to where I want it to go. That's sort of one big thing, of course. And another big fear, I mean, this was the, I'd say is also, that maybe, I usually say I work with really smart, I work with really smart people. They're not stupid people. It's only that they haven't done it before, so they're inexperienced. You just don't know what to do. So follow-up question from Melina here. I'm adding Melina's questions on the screen here. You can't see it on TikTok, but the question is, what skills are needed in the founder team when they first kick off? What skills are needed in the founder team when they first kick off? Well, there's this going thing in the startup world that you need a tech person and a business person, and usually those are the main core skills. You need to understand what you're building if it's a tech thing, and you need to understand the business part of it. We get lots of teams that are very one-sided. So either they're like very tech oriented, and then we need to add the business side, or they're very business oriented and they have no idea how to build it, and then we have to add the tech side. The skills part is interesting, because all skills that you will need in your journey don't have to be core founder, core team skills. But I would say that if you are in any way building a technical solution to a problem, be it a service or a product, then it's very, very hard if you don't have any tech skills on board. You need to have somebody at least in charge of tech that understands tech, that can speak tech. Preferably, you have somebody on board that can also build tech, not necessarily build everything, but at least know their way around it, because otherwise you will always be stuck in the hands of the people who are working with tech. The worst thing that can happen is, of course, if you only work with the consultants that are building tech for you, and then you keep on having to fork out money every hour or every month to keep it going. The best thing, of course, is to have that in your core team so you yourselves can build what you need. I mean, I can say that most of the successful teams that I've seen come out of KTH Innovation have their own tech. And the thing that is important about that is that in the early stage, you're learning so much as you go. And there's a constant listening, learning, changing, listening, learning, changing, listening, learning, changing. Do, evaluate, follow up, change, and then redo again. Plan, do, evaluate, that kind of thing. That's very, very fast cycles. And you keep on having to sort of rebuild and mini pivots all the time, change stuff. That didn't work. Change that button there, change that color there, change this functionality there. So if you don't have your tech skills on board from start, those cycles, I'm not saying it's impossible, I'm just saying that those cycles tend to get longer and more expensive. And the one team, I can say, one successful team from KTH Innovation, they build a webinar platform called Univid. Their biggest advantage as a team was that they were the ones, they had kind of a magic combination, because they're like super tech developers themselves, and they're also super business minded people. So they're kind of a weird mix. But they could run a webinar with a client. They had the feedback in the afternoon from the client, and then like the day after, they'd updated it for a new version, and they sent it out and said, here's a new version that's doing what you said it should do. So they had extremely fast iterations and changes of what they were building, which made a very, very, very big difference for them, at least. So when it comes to that, I would say if you're building something technical, I would suggest having the tech part in the team. However, you cannot just have only the tech part in the team. You have to have somebody who is solidly and 100% in tune with the business of what you are going to create and sell and make money on. Somebody has to understand, the really understanding of the whole sort of customer need. What need are we actually, because you only have tech people, they tend to get stuck in building the tech they want to build. You don't want to do that anyway. You want to build the tech that the customer needs. That's the big difference in between those two. So you're not building what you want to sell. You want to build what people want to buy, even though it's based on your sort of own vision there. But you have to be super, super in tune with the market and the customer and market need for what you're building, which is another problem, because usually the people that have come up with ideas and young people, students, innovators, myself, tend to be like 3 to 5 years ahead of the curve, right, before it becomes something mass market. So you have to be really in tune with when do we release what in which version, so we actually match the customer's possibility and acceptance of buying and using what we're releasing. And this isn't a startup thing. This is an old thing. I mean, one of the well-known designers in from yesteryear, called Raymond Loewy, one of the American big advertising guys. He's called like the father of industrial design. There's probably a mother of industrial design out there as well. It's just that the guys took all the credit for it. But he had this thing called the Maya principle, Maya, Maya, the Maya principle of design. And that was most advanced yet acceptable. So what's the most advanced thing we can build or design that is still acceptable for our users? Because if we design something that is too far ahead of the curve, people won't accept it because it will just be science fiction. So you need to sort of back up to the point where their acceptance of a new exciting thing is new and exciting enough for it to be like a cool thing, but it's not too exciting and it's not too new, so they can't buy it because it won't fit into their technical infrastructure, or it won't fit into their social infrastructure. They won't, because if it's like way crazy fashion, like clothes, you might not wear exactly the same thing that they'll wear on the catwalk and haute couture, but you'll wear it as it is watered down in, Zara and H&M like a year or 2 years later, because that's when it sort of kind of is mainstream fashion. But if you walked out downtown with that first garment on yourself, it will be not accepted because it will be too far ahead of the curve. And the same thing goes with innovation, that successful innovation is about timing. You need to find that sweet spot of, pushing it far enough, but not too far. And that sweet spot has to have somebody in the team looking for the sweet spot. Where's the sweet spot between how far we can push things and how far is far enough to be new and exciting, but how far is far enough to still be able to be accepted and bought. So that's one very, very big thing when it comes to the business skills. And nothing beats somebody who understands the value of making money, because way too often startups are all about just give us $1 million and we'll be fine. Just raise the money and we'll get a team on board and then we'll do that and then everything will work by itself. But it won't. You need to have a solid idea of how is this going to make money, preferably from as soon as possible. Preferably you sell what you're selling before you've even launched it. Preferably you have a pilot customer on board. Somebody's come on early and they'll start paying you to get it done. I mean, that's the in the best of worlds, of course. But you have to have somebody on board that realizes that what we make today is what is going to pay our salaries tomorrow. There's no magic, thing out there. Hope is not a business strategy, as they say. You need to have a really, really solid business and market and understanding of what is it that's going to make our business work in a sustainable long-term way, as in paying customers for something. Preferably if you want to start something, if you're a first timer, I would suggest don't start with anything super crazy out the window, disruptive, that needs $10-50 million in investments and you have no idea if it's going to work. Start with something super simple that works. Be an entrepreneur, not an innovator. So be a good business person, more than just an inventor, and then get some solid business going. Prove the point that you can get a solid business going. If you've done that once or even twice, maybe, then you have no problem with starting a new unproven idea because you know what it takes to make money. 2, you've shortened and enabled raising money 10 times over because you've proven the point that you can make money on something else. So, I'm kind of going against my own grains here because I'm like in the innovative space, but I will say that the best thing you can do if you really want to be a innovative entrepreneur in the future, start by building a business that works as a business, and hopefully then you might even have built your own economic platform to enable you to take bigger own risks with your own capital the next time around, which will make you not have to take in so much external capital. So that will be my solid advice is, learn how to build a good business, learn how to build a good company, learn how to attract and hire good people. And then if you've got that down, then you can go on and start something much more difficult, as in never tried before. One of the problems I see is that people try and do everything from the beginning. They try and invent this disruptive idea that nobody's ever heard before, with a skill set that they have never tried before. So they're completely new into that as well. And of course, with the technology that isn't built yet. That's like what I call the triple uphill of the first-time entrepreneur. You have all of these, you have the whole deck of cards stacked against you. So there's no wonder that 9 out of 10 startups fail, because there's so much you're up against that I have to make work. So if you can just take away one of these 3, big steps uphill, then you're really well off. But if you can manage to sort of, lower the thresholds and work your way into it, I'd say you're much better off. And then, of course, if push comes to shove, come to KTH. Apply for a course or here at KTH, get a master's at KTH, whatever. And then when you're here, you come to KTH Innovation, and of course you get all the free support you need. And we'll help you both with recruiting and training and everything you might, and funding as well. So shamelessly marketing KTH here, of course. So any other questions? Just as I said, pop them in the feed. Ask me anything about startups, entrepreneurship, new ideas, whatever it could be. Happy to answer. This is my weekly half-an-hour coffee break. I have my coffee here. Actually, it's not coffee; it's tea right now. And 30 minutes coffee break with Donnie. Innovation Fika every Wednesday, 2:30 p.m. Next week is me with a guest again, and I'm hoping that Melina, if you're still on the call, I'm hoping that you'll join me in a week soon here during this break. Let's say sometime before midsummer. Let's have something, you and me, here at KTH before midsummer. I like that. That'd be nice. Happy to have Melina on the call again. Okay. Any other questions from the people out there when it comes to startups? We're talking about, we had questions about what's needed in the founder team. We talked a bit about failing. I touched on the failing part a lot, but I'd say that many times people have this idea, and then I say, well, have you, doesn't this exist? Have you Googled this? Have you checked this? Hasn't anybody else come up with this idea before? Which, of course, the answer is probably yes, because the chance of you coming up with the chance for you coming up with an idea that nobody else has thought of is, it's like this tiny. Just do the math on how many other people are in your kind of situation around the world at this time, when they're reading the same kind of news and getting the same kind of information from different channels, and you'll see that just statistically, you're like one of a million people who are trying to act on exactly this problem in this way. So the chance that you are the only one in the world that's ever come up with this idea is very, very small. I will, however, leave it as a infinite possibility. But anyway, so why hasn't it worked? Why can't you see what you have come up with in the world around you? Well, you have like the basic 4 reasons for that. First of all, the very common one is it simply doesn't work. The law of physics. You come up with something which is either physically impossible to create, or it is just so incredibly difficult to recreate or emulate that it's just is near impossible. One very good example of that is, things that we've been trying to do for a very, very long time. Take fusion energy, which is still a huge thing, right? We're trying to build fusion reactors on Earth. A fusion reactor is more or less emulating the sun. I don't know if you know how the sun actually works, but it's a huge, big planet made up out of flammable gases and other flammable chemicals, and it has an enormous gravity pull, and it pulls everything towards the center of the planet, of the sun. And as all of these things compress and an enormous pressure, they ignite and then they start burning. And that is, that's basically how the sun works in a very, very, very simplified manner. And the sun is very, very hot. It's like 5,000 degrees Celsius on the surface, and it's about 50 million degrees in the core, right? So that would, of course, be an incredible source of energy. How can we recreate the sun on Earth? And that's something that we've been trying to do for a long, long time. but it's really, really hard to create something which is like 1,000,000 degrees hot in Earth. You can't really have it in a coffee cup, 1,000,000 degrees. It's like it would kind of melt, right? So they're trying to, so that's on the, the first thing why you cannot see this incredible idea that you came up with in the world is it doesn't work. So far, fusion energy, no, it doesn't work. They're trying to make it work. Here at KTH, they're building the first fusion chamber reactor for holding up to 1,000,000 degrees within a magnetic field. So maybe in 10, 15 years, it will work. But today, no, it doesn't work. Two, the second one, yes, it works, but it doesn't scale. It works in a very, very small way, as in, in a lab or in a petri dish or in a extreme, not just tech stuff, but it can also be things that are very, very labor intense. It costs more labor to actually produce something that than you can ever get back from it. So which means that you can do it sort of manually yourself, but it doesn't really scale because very soon you hit the ceiling for how much you need to put into it to get back from it. It works. Yes or no. It scales, yes or no. Well, maybe it works, maybe it scales. And then usually you, of course, it doesn't make money, or it can't make money. There's no business model built into it. There's no business model that can possibly make its money back, and make its money back in a way that it actually makes more money than it costs. So that's kind of a variation of the second one. It can't scale economically. And then, of course, you have the fourth one, which is the most important one. Nobody wants it. I mean, the world is full of ideas that sound great, but when you release it, you realize, okay, in the way that we packaged it or released it or produced it or launched it, it wasn't attractive enough. Enough being the key word. It wasn't important enough to actually, jolt people into starting to use it. So there are loads of reasons why the idea you came up with can't be seen around you. But once you get to a point where you realize that, well, I've spoken to lots of people. They say they want it. They promise they'll try it once it gets there. And another session we can talk about the whole sort of false positives you get back when you ask people. Don't just ask people, would you want a thing like this? Because they'll probably just say, yeah, sure, whatever. It would be great to have that. That doesn't mean that they'll pay for it once they have it or offered it. It doesn't even mean that they'll use it. So false positives, big thing when it comes to market research. I've spoken to people, they want it. I realize how to build it. I've understood how to make money of it. And I think it's fully possible because all of the tests we've done so far, or even it's similar to something else that I've seen out there that works. So, then you have a starting point of going somewhere. And then you start building something which is as small as possible, launching something as soon as possible, getting the customers, people on board as soon as possible. So you get any kind of traction, any kind of users, any kind of money, any kind of anything into it as soon as possible, because that will also give you the feedback. Just like Unibid that I talked about in the beginning, you'll get feedback into it. So you can do these mini pivots and become even more important for the people that are using you. And if they feel that you've built something for them, they will tell their friends, look at this awesome, cool thing that somebody built that is exactly the same thing that I've been asking for years and years and years. So I'd say, you need a really, really strong understanding of the tech you're building and a skill set around tech. And you need a super, super strong understanding about the business side. With that on board, I'm not saying you're good to go, but it's a good starting point to get going. So with that, my dear friends, it's an innovation coffee break. It's an innovation Fika every Wednesday afternoon, 2:30 p.m. with me, Donnie, here live on LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and also TikTok now these days. So join me next week, 2:30 p.m. Swedish, just again as today, with guests next week again. And hey, send me any questions you might have, either in the feed here or on the feed in YouTube, wherever you're watching. Send me all of your questions about startups, entrepreneurship, what it is, and I'll take them up in my next session. So send me any questions you have about startups, entrepreneurship, getting something started, new ideas, or tech, and I'll answer them next time I come online. Okay, cool. Okay, everyone, take care. Have a great Wednesday afternoon. I'll see you all next week. Thanks for asking questions, and bye for now.